Throughout the race today, the story really isn't when the big one happens. The story should be how many times it does not happen. So many cars, so little margin of error. Today in Wally's World, driven by State Farm, how to avoid having a small part in the big wreck.
Well, welcome to Talladega. Now, all week coming up to Talladega, everybody's talking about the big wreck. Because this race is the wild card. You never know what's going to happen, and as a driver, you're hoping one of your buddies doesn't do something dumb. Now, let me tell you how a driver approaches this race and how a driver can avoid the big one. The best plan is, if you have a good race car, sometimes you don't want to show your hand. But at this place, you have to. You want to get out to the front and let the wreck happen behind you. The next plan is, if you're starting near the back or even in the middle, sometimes it's best to drop to the back of the pack and let the wreck happen out in front of you. This way, if you're riding out in the back with your buddies and the wreck happens, you can slow down and you cannot get caught in it. Now, the Busch Race Daytona in 04, my team owner and teammate, Joe Nemechek, we were in the driver's meeting. We were talking about maybe hanging out with the guys that were going to stop back to the back of the pack and let the wreck happen, and we'll be able to slow down ahead of time. But right before the race started, Joe came up and said, you know what? We got really fast race cars. Let's get to the front and let the wreck happen behind us. Well, we were on our way, and look what happened. Oh, that didn't work out so well. If you're in a wreck here at Talladega, as a driver, you're reacting on what's happening through the windshield. But 9 times out of 10, you're just along for the ride.
How was that ride?
It hurt.
We saw it the next day after that?
Yeah, actually, not as bad as I thought it was, but boy, when I saw that wall coming, it was like, this is going to hurt.
Cars out on the track here at Talladega. Budweiser, the official beer of NASCAR, is the proud sponsor of the Budweiser Pole Award, given to the fastest qualifier at each NASCAR and Nextel Cup Series race. And Budweiser congratulates Elliott Sadler on his 3rd pole of 2005. Take a look at the starting grid presented by Harley-Davidson for today's 500-mile race at Talladega. Elliott Sadler on the pole next to his teammate, Dale Jarrett.
Back in row 2 on the inside, Ryan Newman. On the outside, Tony Stewart.
Row 3, Bobby Labonte and Joe Nemechek.
Row 4, Scott Riggs and Greg Biffle, one of the contenders in the chase for the championship.
Row 5 on the inside, last week's winner at Dover, Jimmy Johnson. Carl Edwards on the outside.
Matt Kenseth and Jeff Gordon, 2 strong cars at this race in row 6.
Row 7, Kyle Busch, second a week ago, and Jamie McMurray, who the guys in the garage think is a threat today.
On the inside of row 8, another Penske car, Travis Kvapil, Sterling Marlin for Chip Ganassi on the outside.
Row 9, Mark Truex Jr., the Bass Pro car, and Jeff Burton alongside.
Row 10, J.J. Yaley and 5-time Talladega winner Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Inside of row 11, Kurt Busch needs to get something going. This would be a great place for a good finish for Robbie Gordon on the outside.
Row 12, Mike Bliss and Mark Martin.
Row 13, you'll find Michael Waltrip and Casey Mears. Both those cars will have to drop to the rear of the field for work on their transmission.
Row 14 on the inside, Brian Vickers. Casey Kane for Ray Evernham on the outside.
Ricky Rudd and Dave Blaney share row 15.
Bobby Hamilton Jr. on the inside of 16. Jeremy Mayfield on the outside.
And as you look at the rest of the starting grid, 43 cars going 500 miles. Michael Waltrip is one of them. Let's see if Wally can get him on the radio.
Hey, Michael, this is Wally in the booth. Can you hear me?
Yes, Wally. How are you?
Pretty good. Man, your car looked awfully good yesterday in practice, and you know, you qualified well, but have to drop back with the transmission change. How do you play it now?
Well, I'm just going to observe probably for a few laps, Wally. They're going to be 4 or 5 wide even, and there's just no sense in me trying to get from last up through that while it's like that. I think my car's strong enough to when once they string out a little bit, I'll be able to get some help and get up through there. So watch for the Napa Chevy and the guys back here to just chill out for a few laps.
So you'll just let things settle down. Will you stay back there, you think, through the first pit stop, or will we just let it settle and then pick your way through?
I think I'll be up through there by the time the first pit stop happens, I hope. And again, it has to all develop, Wally. You got to see what happens and follow along and then to make your plan off that. One thing for sure, though, I'm not nervous because I'm starting last, and I got the old Aaron's Dream Machine right in front of me. Not a whole lot to worry about back here right now. Check in later. The pulse might go up a little.
Okay, good luck, Michael.
Michael Waltrip with Wally on the radio. Let's go down to pit road, get to the final stories before we go green. Start with Marty Snyder.
Well, Bill, as you told us earlier, only one chase driver out of the 10 has a win here at Talladega. Mark Martin has 2 of them. But he admits, you know what, I'm not a very big fan of restrictor plate racing, but I understand why you folks at home would love it so much. If I was at home, I'd be sitting on my couch and you couldn't pry me away from the television. That is excellent advice from Mark Martin. Sit back, relax, make sure the drinks and soft drinks and the snacks aren't too far away, because you won't want to miss a minute of today's race. Mark told me just a moment ago the car is outstanding. We can definitely win.
Tony Stewart took a small hit in the points last week, dropping 4 spots. Now he says that 18th place finish at Dover, that wasn't their chase mulligan. And they're not in catch-up mode just yet, because after all, they only are 23 markers out of first. But if you look at his past history this year and here at Talladega, today should be a great points day. He's got the car that dominated Daytona back in July, leading all but 9 laps. If you look at his past results here, 4 times, Dave Burns, he has finished second.
Ryan Newman would like to change the record books today for RP Roger Penske, because he has no RP restrictor plate victories. He could do that today based on a very good car in practice so far. And momentum in the chase so far. He's the only chase driver to have 2 top 5 finishes in 2 races. That win at Loudon, and of course last week 5th at Dover. Alan?
Right now, every driver on the track, every crew member here on pit road is thinking the very same thing. Will the big wreck happen, and will our car be in it? For the 10 drivers chasing the championship, whether or not they're in the big wreck will determine whether Talladega was opportunity or obstacle for their title bid. For some, like Kurt Busch or Matt Kenseth, it could be an elimination race. Will the standings close up, or will some find their title hopes extinguished? We find out starting right now. Bill?
Thanks, Alan. You guys have a great day down there on pit road. Chevrolets have been very strong here at Talladega. They won the last 13 races at this track. Take a look at the Chevy drivers to watch. In the last 8 restrictor plate races, Jeff Gordon has 4 wins, Earnhardt Jr. a couple, Stewart and Michael both with a win. We'll see what happens with those Chevrolets today. For much more on NASCAR, log on to NBCSports.com. Check out Benny's preview of each race in the chase for the Nextel Cup Championship. And Alan Bestwick has a look at why Kurt Busch is the driver with the most to gain from today's race at Talladega. It's all at NBCSports.com. And as we were going through the grid, you saw drivers that failed to make the race and drivers that had to fall to the back, and Bobby Hamilton Jr. was on both lists. He did not qualify for this race in his car, but they worked a couple of deals down in the garage. So Bobby Hamilton Jr. shifted to a car. He put 32 and tied on it. They wanted to get their sponsor in. Mike Skinner moved out of one car into another car, and Hermie Sadler gave up his ride. So that's why we've got a couple guys moving cars, and one guy, Hermie, who did qualify, is not actually in the race.
And I would imagine some cash changed hands.
You think?
I think.
I think a lot of cash probably changed hands, but they really wanted to get the Tide ride and that sponsorship into this race, and Michael had the Aaron's deal. He wanted to get that into this race, and it took a lot of guys working hard, and they got it all worked out. Beautiful day here in Talladega, 82 degrees, sunny, breezy, and a lot of fun.